historical moments of time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity.
This guy right here and the guy before him, they are very, very evil people. This dude right here, Prince Charles of Wales, this dude is nothing but an antichrist. Yeah, he's a antichrist. And he's probably a sicko. There are rumors going around that he was messing with Mr. You know who, that had the little island with all the little kids, flying them on the plane, basically running a pedophilia brothel on a private island. Everybody know who I'm talking about. You don't want to mention it. You know how they is about YouTube. They like to censor and take down your channel and everything. And that's another thing that the New World Order has on their mind. It's basically crushing dissent. Now, I don't told you in my video the powers that be versus the power of the people. That don't matter what level of protesting that you take it to, whether it's just be speaking out or grabbing your guns and anything in between, the government and the powers of be will come down on you like a ton of bricks. Everybody needs to wake up and come together. There need to be around about 10, 20 million people on the White House line telling Joe Biden, you either do what we tell you to do or get the hell out. It doesn't make any sense, people. You better wake up. Going to your job every day and working every day, that stuff is going to end real soon. You're going to be cut off. Like as if somebody took a sword and chopped your head off. People, get it together. Everybody needs to come in one accord and beat these tyrannical governments that's trying to take over our lives. See, last time I checked, I'm a grown-ass man. And as long as I ain't hurt nobody or doing anything to anybody, you got no business trying to tell me what to do, where to go, how to do it. But that's where they're trying to get it to. Where a normal citizen doesn't have any choice but to be subjective to the one world government. Let's continue the video.
Opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers.
I don't know when he's talking about or what he's talking about, opportunity that we never had before. Who's we? Who's he talking about? He's definitely not talking about us. Let's continue.
As we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play.
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call. It is imperative that we reimagine, rebuild, redesign, reinvigorate, and rebalance our world. Rebalancing investment, harnessing science and technology, and advancing the transition to net zero emissions, all elements of the Great Reset.
And right there, he just lied to you. He talking about harnessing technology. The only people that's harnessing or hoarding all the good tech are the elite. Do you honestly think that they're going to spread this tech around what normal people and poor people can take advantage of? Of course not. They want to disconnect us from that, so we won't have any type of power to do anything about it. Let's continue.
Are fundamental to building the future we need.
And if it's still not clear, the book written by World Economic Forum boss Klaus Schwab himself, setting out precisely how the most powerful forces in the world are lining up to use crisis as a pretext for introducing a new climate change-focused one world economy.
Now let me stop it there. You see this? It says, this is what I want to talk about It's creating a perfect storm for the Antichrist. Y'all see that? And his complete totalitarian control. Totalitarian, I can't even say it right. Totalitarian control. By totalitarian, I mean a global that is both centralized and dictatorial, require a complete subservience to the Antichrist, who will control a one world government, a one world economy, a one world government, and a one world religion. Do y'all see this? All this stuff is coming to pass, and these lunatics are looking into religious texts as if it was an instruction book, like, ooh, what do we do next to make this stuff come a little faster? People, just about everybody who has any type of money and power are lunatics. They are crazy, and they're trying to kill us all. What's up and what it do, ladies and gentlemen? I am your host from coast to coast, Mad Sherman, and you are watching One Man's Worldview. Now, I like to make a couple of announcements here. I will start going live next week. Along with going live next week, I will be posting my Patreon, my Cashapp, and my PayPal link at the bottom of the page. So what I'm asking is, if you could just buy me a cup of coffee, send $1. It'll help the show to grow. And it'll also give me better content. I can get better equipment. So if you can't donate, why not just hit a like? Go ahead and hit the like button. And if you really like my content, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. That way you know when I'm dropping another video. And along with these announcements, not only would I be going live, I would also be having special guests on my show. Some you might know, some you might not. So we're going to try to change the show around a little bit. Try to get more subscribers in, more people to like. And yeah, we're going to try to make this show grow. But I would need y'all help out there. So again, my Cash App, my PayPal, and my Patreon link will be at the bottom of the description of the video. So with that said, let's go on and get on with the show. Today I'm talking about the politician versus the proletariat. Now, when I talk about these things, I talk about these things to wake people up, to let them know what's going on, because some people just don't have time to look at corporate media and try to dissect what they're trying to say to you, because we all know they're just spitting out propaganda. They're just spitting out certain things and framing certain issues to fit the narrative. And 9 times out of 10, the narrative is basically on the side of corporations, politicians, leaders, and the elite, police state, the military industrial complex, and the healthcare system. Most of the time, when you look at news, it seems to me that they never take the side of the people. They always seem to take the side of the corporations. And do you know why? Those same corporations, they 9 times out of 10 playing those newscast people, they spitting the propaganda, they paying their paychecks. Yeah. See, because of Bill Clinton, we started off around by over 50 different media companies. And now they don't all come together as 6 different major media companies now, owned by the same people, spitting the same narrative, the same propaganda, the same gaslighting, the same lies. So all I just want people to do is just listen to what I'm saying here. You don't have to take heed to it or believe in it. But this is one man's worldview. And my view is that all parties need to be abolished. There shouldn't be any parties in America. But if we got to have any party, it doesn't need to be the Republicans and the Democrats. Third parties is a choice. Individuals who's running for office is a choice without, being affiliated by a party. Electing people that punched the clock just yesterday, that's a choice. We don't have to choose what's in front of us. But we go along with the system, say this is your choice, and we go out here and vote. And that same lobbyists and corporations will buy that same politician, whether they a Democrat or whether they are Republican. So basically that, this video is about to wake people up and let them know that you have a lot more power than you think you do. The way that things are now, they don't have to be. So with that said, I want to make myself clear about what a politician is. We're going to define it here. All right. And we're going to give a detailed description of what modern day politicians do most of the time. So with that said, let me go ahead and share my screen and we can make things a little more clear. All right, good people. I got this definition or this meaning from dictionary.com, and it reads as follows. A politician is a person who holds or is seeking political office as an elected government official. The word is most commonly used in a context of politicians campaigning, giving speeches, and promoting themselves, as opposed to the activities that they do as part of being a government official, voting, debating issues, and working to find solutions to the problems, in which case a politician might call a representative or an office holder, or a legislator or a lawmaker, if they work in the lawmaking capacity. The word politician is often used in a negative way. I wonder why. That's because being a politician is often associated with attempting to be likable to the largest possible group of people, which is the voters or your constituents, in order to get elected and gain influence, and perhaps doing so for one's own benefit instead of the public. See, this is the problem right here, ladies and gentlemen. Instead of the public, one's own benefit. Politicians are often affiliated with political parties and associated with party politics, which involves the strict adherence to the policies and principles of the political party, not the people, regardless of the public interest, often resulting in partisanship. The word politician is also commonly used as a figurative way to refer to a person who is particularly skilled at navigating the politics, the activities involving gaining and maintaining power and influence, or a certain situation, such as a workplace. Calling someone a politician is a way of usually implying that they are good at building support, especially with the goal of helping them to further some agenda or boost or maintain their power. In the setting, however, it is also usually implies that such a person is at least somewhat dishonest or fake, like many real politicians are often accused of being. The The word is often applied in this way to some who tells people what they hear in order to gain power or influence. In other words, the flowery rhetoric when they go to campaigning and promise you certain things and certain things that they're going to fight for. When someone says that an elected official is not a politician, even though they obviously are in the literal sense, they usually mean that the person is exactly as they seem. They're not presenting an artificial public persona. So let me stop sharing my screen. So you got two conundrums when it comes to being a politician. A politician is a person that can put up a fake persona, or a person could be called a politician just because they can gather support. And then again, a person can be a politician but not called a politician, but more like a statesman, because they don't put up a fake persona. They who they are, who they show you who they are. So the politician can be a very complicated thing. I mean, you are there in Washington as a politician to craft policies. That's why they call it politics. And you're there to administrate, to make the lives of your constituents better. But somehow, some kind of way, that meaning of a politician got lost in the sauce. And I did name this video, politician versus the proletariat. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen one more time with you with a meaning. And this time we're gonna define the proletariat. So check this out. All right, good people. This right here is the definition for the proletariat. I got this definition from Wikipedia. And it reads as follows. The proletariat, from the Latin proletarius, producing offspring, is a social class of wage earners, those members of society who only possession of the significant economic value is their labor, the capacity to work. A member of such class is a proletarian. Marxist philosophy considers the proletariat to be exploited under capitalism, forced to accept meager wages to return to operating in the means of production, which belongs to the class of business owners, the bourgeoisie. Marx argued that the oppression gives the proletariat common economic and political interests that transcends national boundaries, impelling them to unite and take over the power from the capitalist class, and eventually to create a communist society free from the class distinction. So basically what that tells me, that the proletariat, the only value that they have to society is their labor, their capacity to work. And the Marxist philosophy argues, and it says right here, considers the proletariat to be exploited under capitalism. See, capitalism is a system to me, and this is probably my own meaning here. Capitalism is an exploitation type system, sort of like a legal bribery. You see, capitalism, it gets labor together and starts running a company here, and only thing that the capitalists even think about is profit. They think about more ways to cut back on the company, and I would guarantee you that if they do any type of cutting back, the proletariat is the first one to feel it. Yeah. See, they don't take their workers as much value. Not in these days. The system is designed to hire and fire people, which puts them in an economic bind. You see, one thing about the whole entire system, it is designed to keep a worker down. It's not designed for a worker to get promoted or change income status or anything like that. No, they want to keep as many people as they can down. They want to keep people from prospering in this country like they used to. Back in the day when my dad, he only had an 8th grade education, but for some reason he was able to raise the whole entire family. He had a good job with good wages. But all that's changed. And that's one reason why I feel sorry for, generation Y and Z, the new millenniums. They have a hard time trying to make it in this world right now, socially and economically. But people, what you got to realize is only because of the system. It's not because of some type of individual making a mistake in life, especially when it comes to the Black community. See, the Black community is always at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to anything. I mean, I can draw you a prime example of FDR's New Deal. Yeah, it helped out a lot of poor and middle class white people. But I will dare say, Black people was left out of that deal. And, that's a story for another time. I will talk about that. The New Deal wasn't designed for Black people. It was designed for white people, white liberals. But like I said, what we have to understand here is that the proletariat is the ones that make this economy run. The problem is that corporations don't treat them as if they are that important. What these big executives and these corporations, the elite, what they have to realize is that you wouldn't even have what you have if it wasn't because of the workers. That's why there should be more worker co-ops where the workers share in the profit of the company instead of them getting paid slave wages. But at the same time, the job wants you to be there on time, do as best as you can, but they don't want to pay you for that. And see, the industry right now is wondering, why is there a shortage of workers out here in the labor market? You raise your wages to a living wage and all of that would change. But, these elite people act like they can't add 2 and 2. They really can't. They act like they can't do logical math in their heads. And it makes me wonder, how long do they think that this is going to last? How long do they think that a worker is going to take all this being marginalized to the point to where they can't even raise a family or pay for a home or a car? And see, the worker never trying to ask for any type of influential power or anything. Just want to be able to live decently without the struggle. So with that said, I want to show y'all a video. And every video that I play is for educational and for fair use. So with that said, let me share my screen with you. And we're going to comment on the video as it plays. All right, fam. This is a video Dr. Richard Wolff on his channel, Democracy at Work. I implore you to check out his economic updates. He's a real good economist, and he has more of a social Marxist leaning type belief. So with that said, let's go ahead and play the video. And he's going to show you how much of a scam capitalism is.
I want to turn next to stock buybacks. I want to make sure everyone understands it, because if you do, it gives you a window into another aspect of capitalism that will make you critical.
And before he goes on, I would just like to say that Wall Street It's just a giant legal Ponzi scheme. Let's keep that in mind as he explains.
Trillions, not billions, trillions of dollars are spent in the United States. Probably every year, but certainly every other year, if you put 2 years together, on buying back stock. What does that mean? It means take a company, I'll pick one, General Motors. The board of directors, those 15 or so people that make all these kinds of decisions and allow no one else, by the way, to do so, the board of directors decides to take a chunk of its profits, not invest them in a better car, not hire anybody, none of that, but instead to use billions of dollars from their profits.
And by the way, that's also include not investing into the employees and their well-being. Let's continue.
To go into the stock market and buy shares of their own company, General Motors shares, perhaps shares owned by your grandmother, perhaps shares owned by your bank, the usual. Why would they do that? Because the company, by bringing in big purchase orders for General Motors shares, will drive up the price of General Motors shares on the stock market. And you know who that's going to make happy? All the shareholders, all the people who own shares of General Motors, seeing its price go up, will get.
And ladies and gentlemen, he means it's being artificially pushed up in value. Because what they do, they take their profit, turn right back around and buy their own stocks back, which raises the value artificially. You follow? Let's continue.
Big smiles. As I've told you many times, 10% of the people in this country, the richest 10%, own 80% of the shares. So if you do stock buyback, the biggest beneficiary are the shareholders. How quaint. You know who's among the top 10% of our people? The members of the board of directors of General Motors who make the decision. So when they raise the price of the shares, they are helping themselves as shareholders. But it's worse.
Yeah, they helping themselves, but not the workers, the people who basically produce the profit for the company. So far to me, that just sounds unfair. If I'm out here and my labor is producing you profit, then I should have a share in the profit. That way, the cost of living doesn't affect me as much. I can keep up with the Jones just like everybody else. But if you paying me peanuts and you making more and more and more profit off my labor, that doesn't do me any good, which entail would not hold my self-interest to no longer be employed by you. Let's continue.
For many top executives, their pay package is dependent on how well the stock does. So if the stock goes up, they get more salary.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another incentive. And what have they done with this incentive? They've taken it a step further. In recent years, more and more large corporations are borrowing money to buy back their own shares. In other words, they're loading up their company with debt. They don't care. After a few years, they won't be the chief executive of that company. They'll go on and up the chain or retire. They're loading up the company with debt to drive up the price, which gives them a bigger salary and a bigger wealth because they own such shares.
That is not only the effect. When you put a company in debt, the company always going to look back and try to see where they can cut costs. And the first people who are being affected by it is the proletariat, the people that's going to get laid off. Let's continue.
And by the way, who produced the profit that the company had? Of course, all the people who work at General Motors. All of them. But the vast majority of them have nothing to say about what is done with the profits. They wouldn't use them to boost the share prices because they don't own any shares, and their wages are not dependent on the value of the shares. That's just the top. They're taking care of themselves, in short. The job of the mass of the people is to come to work, do the work, produce the goods, generate the profits, and then shut up so that the tiny group at the top, the executives at the top, the major shareholders, can use that money to buy back their shares in the stock market and boost their wealth and boost their income. What a system.
Yeah, it's an unfair system. And if you really think about it, all these companies out here talking about in the media how they are short of workers. Well, if a system continues to treat people this way, what do you expect to happen? The system is not designed for a worker to make progress in life economically and socially. It is designed to do the exact opposite. While inflation and prices go up, wages are stagnant. And they've been stagnant for 30 years, and I'm going to keep saying that. You see, I don't understand how some of these executives of these companies that sell these products expect to sell a lot of product when you got more people that are poor. And see, that just goes back to what I was saying and the pretext of this video that I was playing an old video of mine. See, they're not here to create technology to help better regular people's lives. They're only doing it for themselves. And as long as people can keep that in mind, then you got more power than you realize. Because the greatest deception right now in politics is deceiving the people, thinking that they can't do anything about the system or how it's designed or how it treats them or how it treats anybody. Let's continue the video.
It's the most undemocratic imaginable. All the other things the corporation could and should do. Remember the next time a corporate executive refers to himself or herself as a job creator. Buying back your shares creates no jobs.
At all. All right, let me stop sharing my screen. Yeah, it's the American dream, but just like George Carlin said, you have to be asleep to believe it. See, the thing about it is, I think it's just very unfair that a person works at a place 30-something years of their life. And what do they have to show for it? Small little pension or 401k. They'll never reach the level of the executive. And that's the way the system is designed. And see, the system is also designed to where these corporations can go to these politicians to craft legislation that favors what they want. It's never in the favor of the people. And see, that's why you got certain states that can fire people for any reason at any time and don't have to give the person any warning. But, if you want to, quit the job or resign from the job, they want you to give them 2 weeks to a month notice. See, the system is designed in a way to where it only favors corporations. It has never favored the people, because if that was a fact, then we wouldn't have so many people struggling with their income right now. 78% live paycheck to paycheck, and over 50% can't even afford a $400 emergency. So that's a failed system right there. And that's the majority of Americans. And this is supposed to be the richest country in the world. So you tell me, what is the excuse? It doesn't make any sense, does it? You see, these companies and these corporations, they never want to offer anything to the employee, no more than they want to give them. And see, that's why I believe there should be a workers' co-op, especially some of these large corporations. The workers should be able to share in the profit. If an employee is earning you around about $1,000, $10,000 an hour from what he's producing, then he should be entitled to at least a couple of percentage of that, instead of just paying him by the hour with their little small wages of anywhere from $12 to $16, $17 an hour. And see, that doesn't pay the rent today. The average rent in the United States, all right, is around about $1,000 a month, and that's just for a 2-bedroom home. So just imagine if a person is making around about $15 an hour, that's to take over 2 paychecks in order to be able to pay his electric and his mortgage or his rent. And he's left with less than half in order to eat or do anything else with, like pay car insurance or pay the car note. So what is left? How can a person even save? And see, corporations and these companies like Amazon, they don't take that stuff in consideration. They don't take in consideration that everything that a person buys and consumes is going up even higher. But at the same damn time, you don't want to raise the wages. That is an unfair system. And all I got to say, people, is stop electing these fools. They don't care nothing about you. They don't care whether you make it or whether you break it. And see, and that's the reason why the United States right now got over 2 million people locked up in jail. I can guarantee you over 50% of the people locked up in jail because they was put in a situation where they probably had to commit a crime in order to survive. To survive. See, for every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. And the system is designed to make these environments. I mean, another way that they recruit for the military, because they know they can keep the majority of the population down economically. They know that they have no other choice but to, let the young folks go to the military. And see, I can prove this to you. So with that said, let me go ahead and share my screen with you. All right, my peeps. Of course, this is another Jimmy Dore video right here. And this video just, recently came out, and I thought it'd be very, very fitting for what I'm talking about here. So with that said, let's go ahead and play this video. And I will be warning you, some language might be a little provocative. Viewer discretion is advised.
You know how it's hard for the military to recruit? You know what they're doing now? This is Representative Don Bacon. He's got his flag in his profile and his flag in his profile pic. He's double flagged. He says, my House colleagues and I are which house is that? My House colleagues and I are spanking each other and sticking eggs up our asses. Oh, I'm sorry. My House colleagues and I are doing the elephant walk, where we stick a thumb in our mouth and a thumb up the buddy's ass in front of us in a circle. Anyway, my House colleagues and I are very concerned that the deeply flawed and unfair policy of blanket student loan forgiveness will also weaken our most powerful recruiting tool at the precise moment we are experiencing a crisis in the military recruiting.
So what that tells y'all, it's telling you that because of Biden forgiving student loan, I'm not sure what the amount is or what the means testing is, $10,000, $20,000. It ain't enough. They need to forgive all student loan debt. But anyway, I digress. But because of Biden passing this little small, I think, very ineffective bill about student loans being forgiven, this nut right here is saying that the policy for student loan forgiveness is weakening the recruiting tool for the military. And, you know, in my video, when I was talking about the truth about war, you know, Mike Presner at the beginning of the video, he was saying that we all go to the military for different reasons. For most of the time, it's for economic reasons and for opportunity for education. Not because we want to fight for our country or for patriotism or anything like that. But we all know that's just a lie anyway. We go over there and fight for profit, for corporations and for their military industrial complex. We're not fighting for the freedom of a regular, everyday American. So let's just get that straight. Let's continue the video.
Hey, you know that piddly nothing amount of student debt loan forgiveness that will only marginally help a small amount of people and also will probably be killed before it even goes through? Well, that could have a harmful effect on our military recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say about we're at the end of an empire? We can't help we have to keep our citizens so poor that they volunteer themselves as cannon fodder. Does that sound like a strong rising empire, or does that sound like the end of an empire?
And it sounds like an empire that doesn't care. So when people get mad at me when I say we need to make changes, abolishing the police state and ending all these wars, what you're doing right now doesn't work. Under the capitalist system right now, all these problems that we're having, all the issues that we're having, it's under a capitalist system, not a socialist system, not a communist system, but more of a crony capitalism, fascist state. Let's continue.
That's literally what this guy's saying. Will it hurt military recruiting more than, like, say, talking to a loved one who got his legs blown off guarding a poppy field for a pedophile warlord in a 20-year disaster of a war?
See what I mean?
Is it going to hurt military recruiting more than that? Because that's what really hurts military recruiting.
I agree.
GOP rep fears loan forgiveness plan will. A group of 19 Republican lawmakers is demanding that President Joe Biden respond to concerns that his recent student loan forgiveness decision will hurt military recruiting by devaluing GI Bill benefits.
And let me say something right here. It says a group of 19 Republican lawmakers is demanding President Joe Biden, Jim Crow Joe Biden, to respond to the concerns of the recent student loan forgiveness decision will hurt the military recruiting and devolving the GI Bill benefits. You know, that is a bunch of bull right there because, number one, Joe Biden is not to the left. Joe Biden is to the right. And just about anything that the Republicans ask for that Joe Biden is going to listen to before he even listens to a progressive or anybody with any type of socialist idea like student loan forgiveness or doing something like legalizing marijuana federally. See, Joe Biden doesn't want to do anything for the people but increase the police state. He don't gave the police, what was it, the Defense Department, $37 billion, excuse me. And then he turned around and he sent over about $50 billion over in Ukraine. But at the same damn time, Jackson, Mississippi doesn't even have clean drinking water. Flint, Michigan doesn't have any clean drinking water. Chicago's in the same boat. Our infrastructure is getting a grade of D. And we keep spending all this money elsewhere other than on our citizens and our country. To me, that's treasonous. Let's continue.
Is it going to hurt recruiting more than watching Rand Paul argue that the military vets should pay for their own asthma treatment? Because how do we know you didn't already have asthma before you joined? Is it going to hurt more than that? By forgiving such a wide swath of loans for borrowers, you are removing any leverage the Department of Defense maintained as one of the fastest and easiest ways to pay for higher education. The congressman wrote in a letter. It's just amazing.
And see, that's what they do to the proletariat. They got all these crappy jobs. Let me tell you something. There are more crappy jobs out there than there are good jobs out there, people. Okay? And, you know, a lot of times this is a good recruiting tool for, you know, young people who want to do something with their life. The military will take care when, you know, a lot better. Then they can take care of themselves out here working for McDonald's or Burger King or Walmart or Target. All these places, they pay pennies on the dollar for your labor. Let's continue.
This is truly amazing. We are through the looking glass here, people. like they don't see this as like an embarrassment for their country. They see this like the government is supposed to, you know, twist arms and use financial leverage, keeping their people poor to make them go be cannon fodder in their imperialistic wars for natural resources against poor countries.
And that's the mentality of these capitalist elite. These people in power. They see us as sheeple, tools, pawns in the game. They don't see us as individuals who are important to other people's lives. They don't care. That's why I don't understand why so many people still listen to the propaganda of corporate media, as if they frame things that happen in nature when it's all because of somebody making the wrong decision or making some type of insidious type of decision. These people in power know what they're doing. They never considering their constituents. They never considering the citizen of the United States. They only considering the industrial military complex, the healthcare system, pharmaceuticals, Wall Street, big banks. No one in that list is a proletarian or a regular worker. Stop electing these fools. Stop caring about these elections as if they're going to do something for the people, because it's not. The only time that the people are going to be able to prosper and get together and rise up from this is we got to start helping each other. Let's continue.
This is really something. As the services try to adopt unique approaches to tackle their recruiting challenges, including historic bonuses, it feels like their legs are being cut out from underneath them. What a poor choice of words. So people aren't joining the military out of patriotism or wanting to serve their country. It's just the massive leverage that you have because they're so indebted. Wow. That's what brings the signups, Jackson. That's how bad the military really is. Don't you think that might be the thing that's harming recruiting efforts, the shitty military thing? You know, outright stating that the military service is offsetting your school loan debt. You got nothing else to offer them. No, the military has nothing to offer. Go ahead.
The military has nothing to offer. A lot of times these guys come back from off tour. They're not able to function like they used to, you know, mental issues, physical issues like getting their legs blown off and things of that nature. And you know what's so funny about it? I think I did hear this from Jimmy. I'm going to stop the video right there and stop sharing my screen. One thing about it is that, you know, people join the military for socialism. Yeah. They get get food to eat, clothes to wear, shelter, money, health care, all kinds of little benefits. And those benefits, that's a prime example of socialism. But at the same damn time, guess what? They go in the military for socialism, to fight for crony capitalism, to fight for the industrial military complex, to fight for all these corporations, never for the citizen. Now, I will say that on the news is that's what they portrayed it to be. Remember those WMDs that they were so worried about that they never found? They said they was protecting our freedom, protecting our lives, when it was all just a bold-faced lie. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the people that's in charge, they really don't hold your self-interest at all. They really don't care what happens to you. They don't care what happens to your family. And they really don't care what happens to anybody. And one thing about it is that when the person goes to work and work all their life, and when they retire, they really don't have much to look forward to. Only the people that retire real good are the elite. It's not a regular working man. He basically in the same spot he was when he worked all those 30 years. So, I mean, I got one more video right here that I want to show you. And it's in connection to foreign policy. And it was also in connection with the workers here. It's also in the connection, the reason why we have people immigrating into this country. And so, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and show you this video. And it might surprise you, but then again, it might not surprise you if you've been watching my channel. So with that said, let's go ahead and share this one more video. All right, ladies and gentlemen. This video is titled, Biden's Migrant Policy is Identical to Trump's. U.S. sanctions are destroying Venezuela. It's got the Revolutionary Blackout Network, citizen journalist Nick Cruz. He is on The Hill on a show called The Rising. It's hosted by Brianna Joe Gray and some guy named Robbie. So with that said, let's go ahead and play the video. And every video that I play is for fair use and educational reasons.
Earlier this week, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre blamed the current immigration crisis on a flow of migrants fleeing authoritarian regimes in Latin America, and chastised Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for exploiting, quote, victims of communism by flying them to Martha's Vineyard. Let's watch.
Let's remember, these folks are fleeing communism. When you think about Venezuela, what's going on in Venezuela, when you think about what's going on in Nicaragua, when you think about what's going on in Cuba, they are fleeing political persecution only to be used as a political pawn by the Florida governor. The way that we see it is alerting Fox News and not city or state officials about a plan to abandon children fleeing communism on the side of the street is not burden sharing. That is not the definition that we see of burden sharing.
Now, I agree and disagree. Ron DeSantis did set those immigrants into those so-called sanctuary cities, but he did it to make a point and for political points. You see, these sanctuary cities claim that, all immigrants are welcome without, the danger of being deported back to their country. And now that, some of these southern border states have started sending some of these immigrants up north, now they want to complain about sending these immigrants up there. There was only 50 immigrants sent to Martha's Vineyard. The 30, 40 acre property where Barack Obama lives. It wasn't even a few hours before they were sending those folks back. But yet they was preaching that this was a sanctuary city. So that's what I'm talking about, the Republicans and the Democrats. They always put this game in front of you as if they are against each other. But in, backstage, they having a beer, saying that was a good performance. I think we got those people fooled. Let's continue the video.
It is a cruel, premeditated political stunt. That is not what that is what they are doing. And so we're always happy to have conversations about ways to further improve border processing, and we could be doing more.
Joining us now to discuss his reaction is co-founder of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, Nick Cruz. Glad to have you with us, Nick.
Thank you for having me on.
So we want to ask you about this question of how much communism is really to blame for the immigrants who have chosen to leave Venezuela. Is the press secretary here accurately describing the motives for so many people leaving the country? What's been going on there?
My first reaction when I saw that, I was thinking, like, is that Sarah Huckabee Sanders? There's literally no difference there between the Biden administration messaging on this issue and Trump's messaging on this issue as well. There's no difference between a Jen Psaki or a Stephanie Graham or the Kareem Jean-Pierre and the Sean Spicers. It's the same thing.
And basically, he's talking about the press secretaries of these presidents. See, they are paid to lie for the White House. That's why I don't want to understand why they call him the press secretary. I mean, if there's going to be a position like that, it shouldn't be biased. It should be an independent position, independent from the rule of the executive branch. But yet you get people like Jen Psaki and this new one right here. They try to put it in front of your face. A black woman that's gay, and she is an immigrant. So don't let them fool you. They always got their talking points to try to frame it in the way they want to frame it to fit the narrative. Let's continue the video.
The same way that U.S. foreign policy doesn't change between presidents at all. And the idea you're going to blame communism instead of U.S. intervention, all three of those countries she named are countries that the United States has put sanctions on and interfere with. And this is kind of the same thing that Chomsky was saying as well. When you look at Donald Trump and you look at Joe Biden, they mostly have the same foreign policy. When it comes from seeking regime change in Venezuela, sponsoring genocide in Yemen, cozying up with Saudi Arabia, funding and shielding the apartheid state of Israel, their hardline stance on Iran, and escalating with China. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
And not only that, they supply weapons to Saudi Arabia to bomb Yemenis. They supply some kind of funding to Israel. I forgot what they call it. Funding to Israel, but Israel's killing Palestinians. But yet we want to pass judgment on people like Bashar al-Assad or Omar Gaddafi or Vladimir Putin. The United States is doing people a lot worse than that. So anytime they try to be on corporate media and basically boosting American hegemony and imperialism, they just propagandizing people and trying to let them know that we, the good people, we are on the side of good and democracy. We all know that's just a lie. Let's continue.
How can you blame an economic model for the failures and what happened to the citizens when you guys are illegally seizing their assets and not allowing them to sell their oil on the international market? You had the Bank of England they just had a sham trial where they said, the $1 billion in gold that we stole from Venezuela, we had the right to do that. And it's very telling that you see the same colonial powers, whether it be the UK, Germany, and the United States, imposing their imperial conquest ambitions on the global South. They think they have the right to ruin the lives of Venezuelans, for example, and other countries because they reject their capitalist imperialist political agenda. The Venezuelan people 100% knows what's going on. That's why Nicolas Maduro is stronger than ever. And this is another example of U.S. sanctions failing. They know the United States government is trying to take them down to install far right-wing fascists that is mostly white, that is mostly bourgeoisie, that has been waging an active class war against Venezuela. When you look at Nicolas Maduro and the socialist revolution that started 20 years ago, that is mostly supported by Black, indigenous, and poor people. And you have the white bourgeoisie who in charge of the media, who run all the companies. They have been waging a class war backed by the United States, backed in.
And what he's basically talking about, and I give you a prime example, Ricky Ricardo. See, he was part of that white bourgeoisie Cubans. They didn't want to lift the Cuban embargo. See, the indigenous people of Cuba are Black and brown people, not the white Cubans that you see on TV today. Let's continue.
Supported by the United States. So it's the height of irony. The Democrats and Pierre, they complain about January 6th. If you look at the coups they sponsor in these countries that she listed, that January 6th is child play compared to what we do to Venezuela. We back Bolsonaro, who used to send death squads into Venezuela to assassinate and kill Maduro supporters. You had the hard far-right fascists in Venezuela that was setting left-wing supporters of Nicolas Maduro on fire in the streets. These are the people that we support. So the idea that you're going to blame an economic model instead of our actions is ridiculous on face value.
And I will add, you can also throw in Ukraine and Russia. See, the United States led a coup d'etat in 2014 in Ukraine, and in order to turn their democratic elected government. This is what started the conflict over there right now. It's the United States trying their best to expand NATO, using the Ukraine people as cannon fodder, just like they use American soldiers as cannon fodder. But at the same damn time, they want to keep on blaming Vladimir Putin when he's been telling them for 20 years, stop expanding towards my borders. And now that he's doing something about it, everybody's hair on fire as if he hadn't said anything. Like he just woke up one morning and just say, hey, I think I just invaded Ukraine. And that's another prime example of what Nick is talking about. You go into these countries and you go to disturbing the society with war and sanctions and things of that nature. It can't help but to fail. Let's continue.
Okay, look, I also oppose many of the policies you just mentioned, the support for regime change. I would get rid of all these sanctions too. But let's not gloss over the long history of corruption and political persecution by left regimes in all of these countries as well. Under policies that have totally immiserated Cuba and Venezuela, it's on and on and on. I think it's laughable to say it's all the U.S.'s fault.
So Cuba has a higher life expectancy than the United States, a higher literacy rate, a much better healthcare system, despite the fact that the United States stole billions of dollars from them. So I'm asking you, Robbie, what's the excuse for the United States? Of course, there are always missteps that governments make, but the United States is the richest empire that we ever seen. 1 out of 5 children live in poverty in this country. If you look at Skid Row, I am asking you, what is the excuse for the United States? You have Venezuela, you have Cuba, you have all these countries that have been the victim of U.S. economic war that you guys call sanctions. Sanctions is seized warfare. You guys locked out Venezuela from the international market and you blame their economic system.
And I will add that sanctions kill more people than actual physical war. See, when you sanction a company, not a company, but a country, you basically taking away the way of getting resources and goods and medicine. That affects the proletariat, the citizen of that country. which caused, certain civil unrest, causing the government problems, causing a coup d'etat. This is the same model that the United States use all the time. Problem, reaction, solution. Let's continue.
We have the record amount of income inequality in this country that is higher than the era of serfdom. So, Robbie, what's the excuse for capitalists? Who's sanctioning us?
I don't think Skid Row, I mean, the collapse of American cities under progressive liberal democratic regimes is not.
And see, this guy's under denial. He's not serious. Nick just laid out to him the policies of both parties. But yet this guy right here will tell you to vote Republican, regardless of what they're doing. They do the same thing that Democrats do. See, this is the type of games that they play with your head in Washington. You got to stop electing these people. Just because they put Joe Biden and Donald Trump in front of us, that doesn't mean we have to vote for them. Stop electing these fools. Let's continue.
Not really an indictment of
the
Trump policies or capitalist policies. I mean, we get to if it's so great in Cuba, why are they fleeing here? Why are they crossing shark-infested waters?
Well, Robbie, the point that Nick is making is that, look, if you really think it's the economic systems in Cuba or Venezuela that are so destructive, why not lift sanctions, let them sink or fall on their own merit, and then we could have a legitimate conversation about whether communism fails. But what so many people on the left are frustrated with is that there has never been a communist or socialist government that has been allowed to freely test the model without the economic war, I love how you put it there, Nick, against them that basically rigs the game from the start.
There's also never been a communist regime that doesn't imprison political dissenters.
And now he's going to go with the political dissenters. What about Julian Assange? What about Chelsea Manning? What about Eric Snowden? See, he goes back to this whataboutism. But the United States is more guilty of these things that he's trying to blame these socialists and these communist countries on. They're more guilty of these things than any of these countries. The United States has killed more people, taken over more countries. We got more than 1,000 bases that we know of. That's not including the ones that the clandestine, black ops, deep state type of government that's not being held accountable to nobody. That's not counting them. Let's continue.
Cause deliberate famine, kill millions of people.
Are you saying that we don't? Are you saying that we don't?
Yes, we do.
I am not. Are you saying that the communists don't? No, I've indicted all of our policies. This is why we can never have honest conversations. I will criticize everything that we do, everything the capitalist West governments do, and then you say, "Oh, so you're not criticizing them?"
But yet you'll still vote Republican.
You turn around and excuse
still taking sides.
Repression under thug-like communist regimes that have killed millions and starved millions. It's ridiculous.
Wait a minute, Robbie.
It's insulting.
We starving millions right now in Afghanistan by putting all those sanctions on them after we've been occupying them for 20 years. So this guy doesn't even know what he's talking about. He can't even argue the point because everything he is saying, the American government is guilty of 3 times over. Let's continue.
Nobody here, we didn't bring up the political oppression because I think the observation that I think
because you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to concede that it's true.
I'm literally trying to, if you just let me get the sentence out here, Robbie. I think what Nick and I are pointing to is that political repression, all kinds of authoritarian abuses, those are things that exist around the world regardless of political orientation. However, those things are only those things are only brought up. The overwhelming majority of countries in this world are capitalist, and most of the bad things that are happening in this world are happening under capitalism. However, capitalism is never blamed for the bad things that happen in the country.
That's what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen.
Country, per Karine Jean-Pierre's statement, is attributed to communism. You're talking about per capita. America has the largest number of people people incarcerated, living in cages, in jails, and anywhere else in the world, not per capita, but period. Despite not being anywhere near the largest country in the world, we have more people in jails than China. And you can say and dispute Chinese numbers and what's true and what's false and blah, 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 blah. But nobody can dispute the fact that we have an unprecedented and enormous mass incarceration problem. So this is not to excuse anything anywhere, but the point still stands. If you think that communism and socialism are such a unmitigated disaster, why is it that they have not been allowed to go ahead and run their own countries into the ground without American political interference?
Yeah,
and just let me add this. We got the biggest incarcerated state because of our president, Jim Crow, Joe Biden. You see how all this stuff connects? Right now, we got well over 2 million people in jail. That's more than China, Korea, Russia, any other countries that we call dictatorships. More than Saudi Arabia. And the thing about Saudi Arabia, I guess they don't raise too many prison spaces. They just behead people in the town square for apostasy and witchcraft. You know, stupid stuff like that. And see, the thing about it is, this is one thing that main media will not stress. They will not stress the state of the government is because of people like Joe Biden and his bad segregationist, racist policies. That's foreign and domestic. Let's continue.
Shouldn't have American political interference. I agree. I say it every time on this show, but they would not be thriving on their own.
Stop being a Republican.
So you realize that U.S. state policy, when they put Cuban embargo on there, was to destroy the economy because they didn't want to show an alternative to capitalism. If you capitalists are so confident that communism will fail, why won't you leave it alone, Robbie? Why won't you guys leave it alone?
I mean, I'm not in charge of the policy of the country, man. I would rescind all of the sanctions tomorrow.
Well, Nick,
and you can't claim that these countries are also authoritarian, because imagine what would happen. And you saw Democrats right now prosecuting January 6th protesters. You had the CIA literally sponsor death squads in Venezuela that try to overthrow the president. Do you know what the United States would do if we did the same thing? So get real, Robbie. This is how the real world works. There's no such thing as overt authoritarianism. It's countries upholding their laws. Laws are a thing, Robbie. You can't overthrow a president without consequence.
Well, look, Nick, and I think that Robbie does, appreciate that. And I, to his credit, would if magically we're president of the United States. And
Robbie really doesn't have an argument. And you can see it in Nick's face. He's glaring for him to say something else. And Brianna had to come in to save little Robbie, because Nick was about to burn him another one. So let's continue the video.
This will get him my vote.
A lot of things to be different.
Would lift sanctions on countries like Venezuela, but it seems pretty clear that most people, frankly, regardless of political party in this country, most of our political leaders anyway, would not do the same. And I think it's a really interesting tell about their lack of confidence that all of their narratives around some of these countries would actually,
including a lot of the migrants. So I would absolutely support, and have supported forever, ending the Cuban embargo. But a lot of the Cuban migrants who come, one of the reasons we don't do that is there's tremendous political pressure on Florida politicians, on Florida Republicans, from Cuban migrants who don't want to do that. Can you explain why that is?
Please,
the
Nick.
Cuban bourgeoisie that has been waging a class war, the same people who fled because Fidel Castro wanted to share the resources with the poor, they don't want to lift the Cuban embargo.
Share the resources with the poor sounds like a little bit of a euphemism.
No. Go to Cuba and ask the average Cuban how they feel about the Cuban embargo. So these class traders that moved to Florida, their opinion means nothing. Saying they didn't want to keep the Cuban embargo? Does that sound like people who care about the country, Robbie? Or people that support U.S. hegemony and capitalist domination
and imperialism?
I want the uplifting of the global working class, and you guys rather destroy the global working class just so you guys can say zingers like communism never worked, that Cuba is failing. Leave these countries alone and allow them to thrive, and then we can talk. Until then, you have to explain to me, Robbie, what's the excuse for the United States for the massive poverty, despite the fact that we have no country sanctioning us? Where's the U.S. embargo, Robbie? But we got Skid Row. We got people without health care. 60,000 Americans die each year because they don't have health care. 300,000 plus could have lived through the COVID pandemic if we had health care. So what's the excuse for the United States? Who's the giant power that has got their boot on our neck? Our ruling class has failed. The central planning model of the United States has failed. So to point the finger at other systems and while you live in an empire that people are starving in is the height of cowardice.
And we're going to leave it there. So you see what I mean, people? Let me stop sharing my screen. So, my people, what have we learned today? We have learned today that American imperialism, hegemony, capitalism, those elements of society is no good for the people. And last time I checked, we outnumber the elite. You see, the United States always used that same model. They'll sanction a company. Well, not a company, I keep saying that, a country. They'll sanction a country. And then they'll turn around and then try to offer the solution to all the economic problems that the country is having, even though they're the ones that is causing the economic problems. And it's been preached to people a very long time in this country that socialism is bad, communism is bad. What do you think the fire department is? That's socialism. You don't give the firemen a payment to come put out your house when it's on fire. That's not what you do. No, socialism pays for that. The so-called cops that are supposed to be protecting people on the street, they checks come from socialism. I tax dollars. I mean, Social Security, it's in the name. Socialism. So it's not that I'm saying that capitalism had to end where people profit and, make a good living off of, a company that they run or anything. But workers need to start being treated right. And what I mean by that, the worker needs to have fair wages, fair benefits, so they can live a normal, regular life without struggling. And for some reason, these elites, these corporations, these politicians, they don't see the nuance of that. They don't see the hurry up what you need to do to help people out. They don't see the urgency of helping people. No, they just go to Washington and give these little speeches, act like they're on the side of the people just to get your vote. And see, last time I checked, action speaks louder than words. And the only thing that I ever see these politicians do is just speak words. And the only action that they do is support the military industrial complex and the pharmaceutical industries. These corporations like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. That's all they do. And as soon as people start treating the government like the government treat us, that's when things are going to change. Workers' strikes. The railroad was in trouble there for a minute. Joe Biden came in to settle them down, to keep them from striking. Because if the railroad had to stop, we've been almost in the same situation as Ukraine. We'd be sanctioning ourselves. All because the United States does not want to heed to the demands of the citizen. The government is for the people and by the people, not for corporations, not by corporations. So we all need to understand that this is where we at. Election time is coming, the midterms. And I will say to everybody out there, stop electing Democrats. Stop electing Republicans. There are other people on the ballot. They just don't say nothing about it on corporate media. because they don't want you to make that choice or have that consciousness, knowing that you got a choice other than what they're saying, other than what they're spitting, their narrative. So understand this, people. The proletariat has a lot more power than you think. Because without us, these corporations wouldn't make the money that they make. They can't split themselves into 1,000 different pieces and do the jobs that we do. And you know, this country is starting to realize that people are really starting to wake up and see these things. That's why you got all these strikes happening all over America, and Amazon, and in places like Starbucks and Frito-Lay, the railroad, truckers. All these people are striking because they're starting to get a consciousness, knowing that the government is just screwing them over. So now it's time to fight back, people. It's time to take the power back. It's time to take our country back. It's time for us to come together, because all they want to do is split us apart and run out the back door with all the money. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and end this show. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. And most of all, I would love it if you share it with your family and your friends, because it really, really will help a brother out. And don't forget that my Patreon, my PayPal, and my Cash App link will be posted at the bottom of the page. Until then, good people, I bid you a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening. Peace. I'm out of here.